Hi everybody, it's Katie. Thanks for tuning in today. I have here with me my friend Danny. Danny is the author of a blog, God in Real Life, and she's joining us today to talk about the second part of our topic of boundaries. And we did a video earlier, so we'll probably have a link in here at some point where you can click back on that if you'd like to watch that. But we're going to dive right back on into talking a little bit more about it. Little bit of a recap, a brief recap. And for those of you who haven't seen the first video, but the first question is, what are boundaries and how do they work?
Mm-hmm. So just briefly, boundaries are our property lines over what is us, what makes us who we are. So that is our thoughts, our beliefs, our decisions, our body, our mind, and things that we have authority over, even possessions. And so you can envision it like physically we have a house, we have our yard, and we have a fence around our yard. So that defines our space, what is ours. So that's what boundaries do, is they define what is under our authority.
Okay, perfect. And then, so just recapping again, and one of the other questions is, why would I want them, and why would they be important in a relationship?
So boundaries, what they're good for is just taking control over what is ours and allowing other people to take control over what is theirs. So just understanding what I have authority over and what I don't have authority or control over. So boundaries helps to just define those and take responsibility for ourselves and not take responsibility for what is not ours.
Right, perfect. Okay, good. So little recap here, and now we'll move into some of my more favorite questions. Not more favorite, but good questions. And that would be, can I have boundaries with my family? And I guess my husband, my kids. Can I have boundaries with those people? Because to me, those are the people that are in my house. You know, here's my house and my yard and my fence, but they're in my house. So can I have boundaries with them, and what does that look like?
Right. Boundaries are important in all of our relationships, and as unusual as it sounds, like we still need boundaries with our kids and with our spouse. It's going to look different than our other relationships because, first of all, you know, our spouse, that's our closest physical relationship.
Right.
And so boundaries are never to shut somebody out, but it's always to protect the relationship. And so I'm going to have boundaries in my relationship to create more intimacy within the marriage. And then with children, that's an interesting relationship too, because they are actually dependent on us. We are actively pouring out into our kids, and so we don't want to have such rigid boundaries with them that they're not experiencing love from us, because, you know, one of our sole reasons for parenting is that we are displaying the love of God to our children. So with that, boundaries within the family are going to look a little bit different than they will with, you know, other relationships, and especially as you get progressively, you know, distant to, you know, just friends or just people we know, acquaintances. So with our spouses, I think boundaries, like I said, they're going to protect that relationship. We are still individual people within the relationship. And so we still need to make sure that we're not taking on responsibility that is not ours in the relationship. So I'm still in control of taking care of my body. You know, my husband can't force me to do that, and I can't force him to exercise or whatever it is. And then, like I said in the previous one, whenever we're having difficulties like within the relationship, if we have like a volatile relationship where there's actually arguing, yelling, mistreatment of any kind, then we need to set parameters on that where we are not controlling what our spouse is doing, but we are controlling how we respond to our spouse. So if there is any kind of abuse, mistreatment, disrespect of any kind, you can say, I don't appreciate that. When you do that, I will do this.
Yeah.
When you yell at me, I am going to end this not the relationship. I'm going to end this conversation.
Yeah.
I will be leaving the room. So we set parameters in that way. But not just with, in volatile relationships. Like, we still need boundaries just in everyday life to ensure that we are in control of ourselves and that we're not just delegating responsibility to our husband, to our spouse. In the case of children, I was thinking of 3 different ways that boundaries apply to that relationship. So the first is we have boundaries with our kids to protect them.
Yeah.
So they are within our property lines, so to speak. They are under our authority. These are children that God has given us, and we are the authority over them until they become adults. And so we set parameters around them for like who influences them, who we let babysit them, and things like that. But we also help them to set boundaries with themselves. So like my 3-year-old, I'm not just going to let her eat whatever she wants. I have boundaries around her until she can make these healthy decisions for herself. And so these are all ways to protect children with boundaries. So I'm protecting their health. I'm ensuring their safety with boundaries. And the second part would be having my own boundaries with my kids. As odd as that sounds, they don't control this relationship. They don't control me. Yeah. Now, when my first 2 kids were younger and I had no understanding of boundaries, I did let them control me. And so I understand what it's like to be on the other side of this, and to think that every time my kid asks for something, I need to give it to them. Every time they want me for whatever reason, I need to be there for them. Which is, that's not healthy, because I was losing myself in the process, and I was a slave to my children. Right. So that was not healthy. I was completely losing myself until I learned boundaries where, like, I can say no to my kids. Right. Yeah. And it's a little bit trickier because we don't want to be so closed off to them that they're not feeling the love. Like, that's of number one importance, is that our kids
always know we
feel
love
loved.
Them. Right.
Yes. So if we have like so many boundaries that we're unreachable as a mom, like, there's something wrong. Yeah. So
we need to scale it back a little bit.
Yes. Scale it back.
Yeah.
But I'm still allowed to make decisions for myself. I'm still allowed to say, no, not at this moment, but maybe in a few minutes we can do that. Yeah. Or if they're asking for food, you're going to have to wait until dinner to eat, things like that. I don't have to give in to their every request. And I can also have physical boundaries, where I don't have to allow my kids into the bathroom every time I have to use the bathroom.
You may not come this time. Sorry.
Exactly. Especially as they're getting older. It's like, okay, we have to, physical boundaries are good and healthy. And what that does is help them to respect us as a person and respect other people's boundaries. And so we're not being selfish, but we're teaching our kids how to love others by respecting other people's boundaries. And then the third for kids is teaching them to have healthy boundaries for themselves. Yeah. And
that's a big one, I feel like, anyway. Is boundaries, kids learning how to what does that look like? Modeling it for them.
Right. So we have to, as parents, see what they do have authority over. Like, number one, their bodies. Yes. Like, that's the first thing they were given as a person. They have their bodies, and they are incomplete. control of their bodies. And so, you know, hugs and physical attention, you know, things like that. We don't force that on our children. If grandma wants a hug and our small child is not comfortable with that, we don't force it, because you know, then the time comes when it's somebody else that is maybe not so trustworthy, and we want our children to understand that they do have authority over their bodies, and they are not obligated to give
ever
access.
let anybody have access to
Right.
them. That's so good and so true. That's perfect.
So it's my job as a mom to ensure that I am respecting my children's boundaries. So even giving them authority over certain things, like that is your stuffed animal. You know, you get to decide who plays with, you know, that special stuffed animal. And if my kids don't want me to brush their hair at the moment, if they want to brush their hair, it's like I can't force myself upon them. But all of this is, you know, it's determined upon age. You kind of have to decide what is appropriate for your child and at what age. But I think the most important thing is that they do have some sense of authority over themselves, and that you are respecting their wishes and their boundaries.
Yeah, good. That's so good. Especially the part about kids. I know it's tricky because as moms, you know, we have to kind of figure out where do we draw the line, and how do we let them in but teach them. So the part about kids, I think that's great. So I just have one last question, and this one, what happens if somebody gets mad about the boundaries that I set out there? What happens if someone's angry and they're like, well, I don't like that, and let's just say it's someone that I care about, and someone that is in my life and that's gonna be in my life, and I need to be able to keep them in my life. What do I do about that if someone gets angry?
That is a very interesting question. I think that is one of the number one reasons that we're afraid to set boundaries. We're afraid of how people are going to react. Because what does it say about me? Like, that now that person is mad at me, or they think I'm mean, they think I'm selfish. Trust me, I've heard it all. And it's hurtful, and I don't think there's an easy way of navigating that, because someone is hurt, and it's because of our decision. So I think number one, like, I just need to be confident in the decision that I'm making. I go to my husband, I go to other trustworthy people, and I need their validation. Am I doing the right thing? And, you know, am I doing something wrong here? So just getting that validation from other people, first of all, and just being confident in the decision that I'm making. And then also, depending on who it is that is, you know, making a huff about your boundaries, if it's someone close to you and you do love them, like, try to empathize with how they're feeling. Like, I understand you want to see the children on this day, but that's not going to work out. I understand that can be hard, and, you know, sometimes my schedule can be hard to work around, but let's try to make this work. And so you're empathizing with how they're feeling, and then also trying to work with them and how to make things work. But
still not compromising your original position, which in the example you just gave is, I want to see the kids on Monday at 9. Well, that's not going to work. So you don't compromise, but you're still trying to work to a new reachable, like, something that works for both of you.
Right. I think it's important that we're not compromising and we're not saying yes when we really mean no. We're not letting other people, I mean, because if we do compromise and we allow their feelings to control us, I mean, then we're loosening our boundaries. And so we have to stick to what we're comfortable with and not allow the feelings of others to control our decisions on what is ours. But at the same time, we want to hear people, and we want to know like how they're influenced by us, and see if there is another way that we can work things out.
Yeah.
But sometimes there isn't. I mean, sometimes your boundary is your boundary, and you need to stick with that. And then there's some people where there's nothing you can say to them. It's only going to be the boundary that communicates to them. Like we probably have people in our lives where they have fought us on our boundaries, and they don't respect our boundaries, and so there's nothing more we can say to them. It's just going to be our sticking with our boundaries that communicates them what you expect from the relationship. And that's also the beauty of boundaries, is that you're never using boundaries to shut people out of your life. You're basically giving them parameters, and you're giving them the choice. Like, this is how I want the relationship to look on my end. This is what I expect. I expect, to be treated fairly and kindly, or whatever it is.
Right.
And then it's their choice of whether they are going to engage in that relationship under those parameters. And so boundaries are always for relationship. You want that is the ultimate goal. You want to respect yourself, and you want to invite people in to your life under those parameters. And so it's always giving the other person the choice of whether they want to engage on that level with you.
Yeah, whether they can meet you there, and if not, then I feel like if you've set, here's my boundary right here, and I'm inviting you to meet me here. If you can't, then my boundary's not, I'm not going to dip down, because then you're compromising yourself, and you're compromising the things that are important to you. And so it's like, okay, here's my boundary, and you can either meet me here or not. And I like what you said about talking with trusted friends, your spouse, maybe mentors that you might have, and just saying, am I doing this the right way? And then, receiving confirmation, it's okay, you're doing well, you're loving this person, but you're saying, here's my line. And then, if people can't meet you there, then you've done it in a loving way, and you've presented yourself in a loving way. But if they can't meet you there, then it is what it is, it seems.
And it is. It's their choice ultimately.
Yeah. Well, I think these are great. I really appreciate you coming and doing this with me. I've been thinking a lot about boundaries since reading your stuff, and actually Dani has some really great artwork, and so maybe at the end of the video we can pop up some of the pictures she's done about boundaries. It's a good visual to kind of help with thinking about this stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And if you like our videos, I would like to invite you to check out our YouTube channel and click on the subscribe button so you can follow along with us. We also have a Facebook page. It's the KT Files. And I would really suggest and invite you to check out Dani's blog, God in Real Life. She's got a lot of great stuff, not only about boundaries, but there's quite a few other things on there as well that are of great value. I feel like I've enjoyed pretty much everything that I've read, really, that you've written. Thanks. Yeah, but thanks again, guys, for joining us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day. And we'll see you next time.